Hello, everyone. We'd like to welcome you to one of our parent pop-up webinars. Tonight, we're talking about the 2020-21 reopening of Stanford Public Schools.
Buenas tardes con todos. Estamos hace rato en un seminario web para los padres. Vamos a hablar de la reapertura del 2021 de las escuelas públicas de Stanford.
I'd like to introduce myself. I'm Olympia Della Flora, and I'm one of the associate superintendents for, not for teaching and learning, that's what it said, but I'm for school development, and the Office of Family and Community Engagement fall under my department. Tonight, I will be moderating this parent webinar, and we're actually going to just try to talk a little bit more with you about the information that you've received about the reopening of schools.
La persona que está hablando en este momento se llama Olympia de la Flora. Ella es la superintendente adjunta de desarrollo y escolar. Ella va a estar en este momento hablando de todo el plan que tienen para este año escolar.
I'd like to just give you a little overview about how our webinar will be run tonight, the logistics. All of the phone lines are muted, and we do have one of our parent facilitators, Maria Pardo, who you have heard, who will be translating into Spanish for us this evening during the webinar. We have a few presenters who will share information on the reopening plan, and we will conclude this session no later than 6 o'clock, and this session will be geared more towards our secondary families in grades 6 through 12. And at 6:30, we will host a second webinar that will be geared towards our elementary families, grades K through 5. If you have questions throughout the webinar, there is a question feature. You may type your question into the box. I will also say that we have several questions that we have already received. We have an email set up that's spsreopening@stanfordct.gov, and we have many questions that have come in that we've already pulled to address during the Q&A section. And if you would like to view this webinar later, or you may be joining us at a later time, we are recording this and we will post it on our district website for viewing later.
En este momento, las líneas telefónicas pueden poner en silencio. La información va a ser presentada en traducción en vivo. El seminario, cada presentador compartirá información. El programa terminará a las 6 de la tarde. Si tiene alguna pregunta, utilice la función que pregunta en el seminario. El seminario web será grabado y publicado en el sitio de web si necesitan saber más información.
I'd like to introduce our panelists, my colleagues that will be joining us today. We are going to have, or we have, our Superintendent of Schools, Dr. Tammy Lucero, who's joining us. We have Dr. Michael Fernandez, who is our Associate Superintendent for Intervention and Student Support. And we also have Amy Beldotti, who is our Associate Superintendent for Teaching and Learning.
En este momento quiero introducirles a la señora doctora Tammy Lucero, que es la superintendente de las escuelas de Stanford. También le tenemos a Amy Beldotti, que es asociada superintendente adjunto de enseñanza y aprendizaje, y el doctor Michael Fernandez, asociado superintendente para intervención y soporte de los estudiantes.
Thank you, Maria. And without further ado, I'd like to introduce Dr. Tammy Lucero, our superintendent. She's going to share some information with us regarding some of the considerations that were made, as well as the educational models, health and safety, and childcare. So Dr. Lucero, let's talk.
Thank you so much. Y en este momento va a hablar la señora doctor Lucero. Ella le va a dar más información sobre el plan que tenemos de la escuela y todo lo que viene con eso.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate this opportunity for our team to really talk with parents and just really answer some clarifying questions as to why we made the decision we did with going with the hybrid model, and then really talk to you a little bit about how we are going to move forward in different areas. So I believe that a lot of people know that one of the areas that we really focused on is related to reopening is the current conditions here in Stanford.
Primero les quiero agradecer a todos por estar aquí. La razón que queremos tener este webinar es para poder, si tienen alguna pregunta, poder explicarles sobre la manera que decidieron abrir las escuelas, y en ese momento ella va a explicar un poco más de cómo se va a funcionar todo cuando se abran las escuelas.
When we looked at the data, and this is information that is given to us from DPH, which is the Department of Public Health, and the State Department of Education, we noticed that the COVID case, not just in Fairfield County, but across the state of Connecticut, were at a level that would have allowed us to open fully with stipulations, which means that 100% of our students would have been able to return with stipulations such as wearing masks, social distancing, and using good hand washing and hand sanitizing procedures.
Con el departamento, la razón que decidimos abrir las escuelas de Stanford, con el permiso del Departamento de Salud, sentimos que se puede abrir las escuelas con mucha, se puede abrir las escuelas tratando de hacer todo lo que tenemos que hacer, que el Departamento de Salud requiere.
But in talking with our local health department, representatives from the Stanford Hospital, and Dr. Yoon, who's our medical advisor, the one area that we felt like we could not open fully and really meet this criteria was that we could not social distance for 6 feet or more in each of our classrooms across our school district.
El doctor Yoon es la persona quien nos está guiando en tomar decisiones para poder abrir la escuela, y la razón que no podemos abrir las escuelas para que todos los estudiantes puedan venir a la escuela, decidimos hacer dos diferentes modelos para que vengan a la escuela, y la razón es porque una área que no podemos tener distancia total, es la razón que estamos tratando de hacer esto de dos diferentes modelos.
So the decision was made, and we probably can jump ahead a couple of slides to move on to the hybrid model, which allowed us to actually social distance at 6 feet. One of the things we also decided that as we were bringing students back to school, that it would be important, and this is guidance from the state, from our students to wear masks. So we will social distance at 6 feet, but we will also wear masks.
El ambiente de aprendizaje van a implementar el protocolo de limpieza y desinfección durante el día escolar y ponerse máscaras durante el día. El nombre del modelo se llama el modelo híbrido.
So these were the two really most important things when we looked in the health and safety section of why we made the decision we made. Health and safety was that we could be 6 feet apart, which we're calling that level 1 recommended. When we think about reducing the risk, we wanted to make sure that we were 6 feet apart. The next thing we did is to wear the mask. That's the next level of reducing the risk. We also will have face shields available to people who want to put another layer of support in. And we will also, what we're asking our families to do is, before you come to school every day, and we'll ask this of our staff and our families, is to do a self-assessment. And you will have a check sheet that you can follow that's asking you certain questions, one of which is taking your temperature. Do I have a temperature today? How am I feeling today? Am I coughing more than I was coughing the day before? And these are all things that we are all going to do. We're asking everyone to do to keep us all safe. So you will have a checklist that you will receive.
La señora Tamu dice que es muy importante que en la escuela tengan 6 pies de distanciamiento social. Eso sería el nivel 1 que requiere la escuela. La segunda parte es usar la mascarilla. Eso sería el nivel 2. Obviamente todo el mundo debe tener frecuencia en lavar y desinfectar las manos. Lo otro que van a tener es protección facial y ese sería el nivel 3. Estudiantes y personal realizan la autoelevación de salud por mañana antes de salir. Es muy importante que antes de que salgan de la casa, los papás vean a sus hijos si están tosiendo, si tienen fiebre o si ven que no están bien. Sería una manera también de ayudar para la salud y la seguridad de todos. Lo otro también que tienen es pruebas de contagio para la personal y familias. El proceso para notificar una enfermedad es una prueba que también ayuda.
So when making this decision, it was really the number one thing we focused on was health and safety. The next thing we looked at is across our facilities, we want to just make sure that we had hand sanitizing stations in all of our classrooms. So we are working right now to have those delivered, and those will be put up before we return to school. We have a lot of signage, and the signage actually went out today to each of our buildings so that it's posted reminders. I know that I need a reminder every once in a while when I go to the grocery store. I start to walk in, I realize I don't have my mask. I have to turn around and go back to the car. We've been working on our ventilation system, and it looks like we are in really good shape to have all of our ventilation systems up and moving before the first day of school. On the chance that we are not completely finished, we do have a way that we are going to make an adjustment to the system so that we are sure that that air is flowing throughout all of our classrooms. And there's a ventilation system in the restroom that we're also addressing.
La escuela creará un ambiente de aprendizaje seguro y saludable. Además de los establecimientos, tendrán una sala de aislamiento para los estudiantes o personas que se presentan síntomas después de llegar a la escuela. Algo muy importante es la limpieza y la desinfección durante el día. Colocar carteles de salud y seguridad, igual también habrá por toda la escuela. Implementar una mejor ventilación con el soporte técnico del Estado, espaciar adecuadamente los muebles dentro del ambiente para el aprendizaje y durante el día no habrán visitantes en el establecimiento.
And so the final thing that I think parents would want to know about in terms of our facilities is that we at this point are not recommending that we have any visitors or volunteers in our building at this time. So that is something that we will work with families. I know some families are very disappointed by that, and we do understand, but we're trying to reduce the amount of people who are coming in and out of the building. So we are working with each of our building principals so that we're able to create videos so that everyone knows what their child's classroom is going to look like. And we also will show you things like the isolation room, because that's, I'm sure, a question for a lot of people is, what is this isolation room going to look like, where my child will wait if indeed they have any of the COVID symptoms when they come to school and they need to come out of their classrooms.
En este momento, tal vez muchos de ustedes tienen preguntas sobre todo lo que va a pasar en la escuela. Lo que están tratando es que no haya visitantes en la escuela, pero de la escuela va a haber mucha comunicación a los padres para que ustedes sepan todo lo que está haciendo la escuela. Los niños que sí tienen síntomas y van a estar en un cuarto, también les van a comunicar cómo se va a ver toda la escuela, cómo se va a ver el cuarto donde ellos van a estar si presentan algún síntoma.
And the last thing that we talked about, and I was really happy that there was a committee. So we had 8 committees working on the plan as we reopened, and we're really proud that we've always had a child care committee, because we knew if we had to go the hybrid or the full distance learning model, that there would be families and staff that would need help finding child care. And so we are excited to announce that we do have a lot of community partners that are helping us with childcare. And so if that is something that families are still needing help with, please do not hesitate to reach out to the Olympia de la Flores office, which is the, I forgot the name of your department, Olympia. You're going to have to help me.
Family and community engagement.
Thank you, Family and Community Engagement Department, and they will actually help you. We know that we won't be able to find daycare for everyone, but we do want to help as much as we can.
Nosotros tenemos 8 comités que nos ayudaron en todo lo que es este proceso. Hay muchas agencias que nos están ayudando si necesitamos que padres necesitan que cuiden a los hijos. Olympia de la Flora, si necesitan, se pueden comunicar con ella y ella les ayudaría a tratar de ver si necesitan alguna agencia para que les cuiden a sus hijos.
Thank you, Dr. Lucero. Next, I'd like to introduce Mrs. Amy Beldotti, our Associate Superintendent for Teaching and Learning, and she's going to speak to us today about the hybrid model. Amy, let's talk.
Good afternoon. Thanks, Olivia.
En ese momento va a hablar la señora Amy Beldotti.
Thanks, Maria and Olympia. So yes, I would like to just talk about the hybrid model. That is the model that has been chosen as our reopening to school model. The hybrid model is allows us to have 50% of our students approximately in our buildings and in our classrooms every day. Students will be assigned to a blue or a green group for cohorting, and they will come to school on their blue or green day for in-class instruction. On their at-home learning day, which follows their in-school instructional day, they will be working on assignments that have been given to them by their teacher in the previous day. They will also be working on potentially activities to prepare them for the next day's learning. So this is sort of the flip model classroom where students are both completing assignments that have been a reinforcement of the day's learning from the day before when they were in school, as well as preparing them for learning that will happen the next day when they again return to school. As we get further into the school year, teachers will be encouraged to try some live streaming opportunities, inviting students to attend, potentially for some demonstration lessons, some mini lessons. But that will be as we try out our technology and we get settled into the school year. But we will not have full live streaming of every day's lesson at the beginning of the school year, but that will be encouraged and developed as the year goes on. But what's really important is that when students are in class on their in-school learning day, they will only be 50% of the students that are typically in class. So many of our high school classes and middle school classes have 30 students in them. In this model, they will likely have 12 to 15 students. So the amount of time spent answering questions and getting everyone settled and allowing everyone to share their opinion will be greatly reduced with fewer students in the room. And so teachers should really be able to move through curriculum much more quickly with half the students in the classroom. And so I know there have been some concerns about only half of the content or half of the curriculum. That is not the case. We will be looking at curriculum and certainly prioritizing standards, but we will not be offering only half of the curriculum in the hybrid model. Teachers will be planning carefully and collaboratively to make sure that all of the important standards and content is taught and reinforced in those at-home activities as well. So we will be working very hard with teachers to make sure that we're able to get through all of the required content at both the middle and the high school level.
La señora Beldari habló sobre el modelo híbrido. El objetivo del modelo híbrido es que las escuelas públicas de Stanford tengan 50% de los estudiantes en el establecimiento y aulas cada día. Este modelo reducirá la cantidad de personas en los establecimientos y no permitirá cumplir con todas las normas de distanciamiento social. Todos los estudiantes de grados kinder a 12 serán divididos en dos grupos, el grupo azul y el grupo verde, y asistirán a la escuela en persona cada 2 días, en el día de la enseñanza y aprendizaje a distancia. El estudiante podrá seguir participando en la enseñanza programada en su aula de forma virtual. En las aulas van a tener de 12 a 15 estudiantes y las profesoras van a poder dar durante el modelo híbrido va a ser completo, no es que van a tener menos de lo que requiere el estado que ellos tengan. I'm all set, Mrs. Beldari.
Okay, and this is just
Amy, yep.
in
There
here.
you
Sorry. So this is the month of September that's laid out in our hybrid model. We do have September through January laid out in the reopening plan that is posted on our website.
El horario que tienen de septiembre está aquí y está también en el website de la escuela.
Thank you, Amy and Maria. Next up, we have Dr. Michael Fernandez, and he's going to speak to us today about technology. Dr. Fernandez, let's talk technology.
En este momento, el doctor Michael Fernandez, asociado superintendente, va a hablar de tecnología.
All right, good evening, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here with you. Our district has made a significant investment in technology, both hardware and software, to provide teachers and students with the necessary tools and technology and resources to enhance the educational experience, really looking at all 3 different models: in-person, hybrid, and distance learning. We want each student to have access to a device. Unfortunately, we're facing a national supply chain backlog, so our device deliveries are delayed, and we are encouraging families that are able to have their child bring a device to school to do so. That will help us, at least for the first month or 2 of school, to ensure every student has a device. And I know many families have already opted into that possibility. We will be providing more guidance on how all of that is going to work and the process for opting into bringing your own device to school, as well as the expectations for devices being going between home and school. In addition, we're excited to announce that we're going to be able to provide more internet access to families. We are going to participate in a state program where families will be able to be part of a voucher program to get free cable internet. And that we haven't gotten the latest news. We went through an application process, we applied, and we're expecting to have 2,500 families qualify. In addition, we'll continue to have Wi-Fi hotspots available, and we'll be able to assign data to students and families that need that increased data. And then lastly, I just want to say that we're doing a lot of work with professional development and developing video tutorials and other helpful resources for parents, for students, and for teachers. We have a committee working on this as we speak, and we're excited to hopefully release these technology support sessions for families and students and teachers.
Okay. La señora Fernández acaba de decir que para los diferentes modelos que tenemos en la escuela en este momento van a proporcionar tecnología, por ese momento, porque está retrasado, las computadoras que ordenaron están pidiendo que todos, la mayoría de los estudiantes traigan su propia computadora. Y si necesitan hotspots van a poder darles. En el momento que empiecen la escuela, están tratando de pedir a todos los estudiantes que traigan la computadora y que igual si necesitan va a haber ayuda para eso. Yes, Dr. Fernandez, do you have something else?
Oh,
Thank
no,
you,
I'm sorry.
Maria.
That's it for technology. Thanks, Maria.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Mike. I'll move on to family and community engagement. And what we really want to do is just make sure that we have open communication during this time. It has been difficult for all of us to be in a world where we can only communicate virtually. And we recognize that, and we recognize the challenges that families may have as well as staff may have. But that is one of the things that we really want to focus on, and making sure that we're regularly having communication, but that you're also communicating with us. So some of the things that we have put in place, we have the email address, the SPS reopening at stanfordct.gov, which we'll show later on the Q&A slide, so you'll be able to jot that down. We also are encouraging parents to, if you see the little Power School emblem on the slide, we have a student information system, and this is what we use to house all of our contact information for students. And this is really the best way for you to get the most up-to-date information. So we're asking all of our parents to make sure that you set up a parent portal account this year, and you can get help from your child's school if you don't have one to set one up. We also are going to continue the parent pop-up webinars throughout the year on various topics. So if you have certain topics that you'd like us to cover, you could also send those to that email address, or you could let your building administrator, the principal, know, and they can get that information to us. And we also will be participating in just making sure that everyone is aware of what we need to do to mitigate the risk for COVID-19.
Lo otro, si tienen alguna pregunta específica que no hayamos cubierto durante este evento, por favor puede mandar un correo electrónico y vamos a poner al final de esta sesión donde pueden mandar cualquier pregunta que tengan a ese correo electrónico. Lo otro, que no va a ser la última vez que hagamos estos webinars, vamos a continuar haciendo webinars porque sabemos que es muy difícil no tener comunicación con la escuela. Continuaremos haciendo los webinars y para poder tener mejor comunicación con cada uno de ustedes. Vamos a seguir hablando de cualquier tema o preguntas que tengan.
Thanks, Maria. Moving on to social emotional learning and mental health. This is an area that goes hand in hand with academics, and we know that our students have experienced different things while we've been away from school. And so what we are committing to is that we want to help our teachers to be able to take time to build relationships or rebuild relationships with students, and then work together to plan for how we help our children move forward with social emotional learning, and things like resilience, and things like if you've had to deal with a death or sickness in the family, and dealing with not being around your friends, and being able to help our staff just re-engage students in school. Second, we are also going to provide support for the adults that work for Stanford Public Schools, knowing that they also, teachers and staff, have also been impacted by this pandemic, and we just want to make sure that we are supporting them through professional development and support so that they can be their best to help our students. We will continue to work to create safe and supportive and equitable learning environments for our students, and also using data with our staffs to help them understand what areas students be coming to us from and what areas we need to improve upon to help support not just students, but families and staff.
Otra parte que es muy importante es la parte social y emocional. Tiene mucho que ver con el aprendizaje. Queremos ayudar a todos los estudiantes que han tenido alguna situación, que ha habido alguna muerte en la familia, o también muchas veces afecta que no pueden estar cerca de los compañeros. También vamos a ayudar a las profesoras porque de alguna manera también ellos son afectados con esta situación. Muchos de nosotros nos ha afectado en muchas maneras.
Thank you, Maria. Now we are going to be moving into our questions and answers. And we will ask a question, and I think I'll ask the question, or Dr. Fernandez will be pulling some questions from that question box. So we'll read the question, and then we will have Maria translate the question, and then we will have one of the panelists answer the question, and then we will have Maria translate the answer. And if you have specific questions, as you said, I'm going to keep this slide up during the Q&A. So if you want to jot down that email address, it will be on the screen as we're addressing questions and answers.
En este momento vamos a hacer preguntas y respuestas. Si tienen alguna pregunta, pueden mandar al email que está en la computadora. Van a hacer la pregunta, vamos a traducir y depende de la pregunta, cada persona va a poder darnos una respuesta.
Okay, first question. Students in middle school and high school have to change classes throughout the day. How will cohorting work at the secondary level? And I don't know if Dr. Lucero or Amy want to take that question.
La pregunta fue para la escuela secundaria, si tienen que cambiarse los niños de una clase a otra clase, ¿cómo van a hacer eso?
So I will talk, how about Amy, I'll talk about the high school if you want to talk about the middle school. All right, so our high school, there is no good way to cohort at the high school level because students are changing classes and they are able to have more selection in their classes than at the elementary and middle school level. So one of the things that you will hear us talking about over and over again is one of the main reasons that we are, the suggestion is for us to cohort is that if we have someone who is test positive, we will be able to do something called contact tracing. And the way we contact trace is knowing who everyone came in contact with, not just for a moment, but for more than 15 minutes. So you're talking about when you're walking up and down the hallway, getting to your class, we don't want you stopping and having conversations with people, especially without your mask on. We want you moving to your class, and we want our students attending all of their classes because that is the easiest way that we will be able to tell who they came in contact with. So this is going to be really important. This is how we will run our lunch schedules at the high school. This is how we will be able to clearly say who's come in contact with one another at the high school level.
En high school, lo que van a hacer es cuando los niños cambian clases, obviamente todos los niños deben ponerse la máscara. Durante ese tiempo no tienen contacto, pero si llegan a tener contacto con alguien que tuvo el virus, ellos van a hacer algo que se llama contact tracing y eso significa que van a tener que saber con quién estuvieron en contacto para poder ver quién posiblemente estuvo abierto a poder tener el virus.
In terms of cohorting at the middle school level, They will be much more cohorted than at the high school level. Middle school students will be placed into houses by grade level, and we'll have 50% of the students coming every day. So that house then will be cut in half again, and those students will be in their core classes together as a cohort. So potentially 15 students will be in their 4 core classes together. Where it gets a little more complicated, again, at the middle school level is when we begin to offer support classes and enrichment classes and specials for our middle school students, but they will stay within their house and their half of the cohorted house. So approximately 60 to 70 students will make up a cohort at middle school. So a little larger than elementary, but not nearly as large as the high school cohort. Again, being sure to have students follow their schedule and know where they are. But it will be a very a fairly controlled cohort at our middle school level.
Mrs. Bildari, I just have a question. So on the middle school level, what you're saying is that they will be kind of like in houses and they will not be moving around as much?
Those core kids will stay together and they will not mingle with any other house or cohort.
Ok. En la escuela secundaria, los niños van a tener una casa y en esa casa es que ellos van a tener sus clases. No van a estar cambiándose de clase a clase. Es muy diferente que en el high school.
Okay, next question is kind of connected with cohorts, and it's around cleaning. The question is, who will be monitoring the cleaning of buildings to ensure that it's done thoroughly, and how will maintenance staff manage comprehensive cleaning each day to prepare for the next day's cohort?
La pregunta es cómo van a monitorear la limpieza de cada edificio y quién va a monitorear que esté limpio y que esté desinfectado.
So I will take that question. We actually decided that as a district, it would be best to put out an RFP so that we would be able to have a company come in and help us design our cleaning schedules, both during the school day and after the school day. They were here this week. They walked 3 of our buildings, a representative of our high school, our middle school, and our elementary school. And by next week, I believe it's Monday, they will provide us with a schedule that we will use to train our custodians in where they are to clean. An example would be the recommendation from the state says that you will clean the bathrooms at least twice a day. During the day, they will also clean high touch areas of the school, so door handles, railings, all of that stuff will be put in place for our custodians. And then in the evening, it will give specific areas that they are to clean in each of our classrooms and offices. Like each of the desks will be cleaned every evening, and they will go through a specific protocol on what to clean. We will have our facilities managers who will be in charge of going around and spot checking to make sure this work is done in an appropriate way.
Como un distrito, nosotros decidimos contratar una compañía que nos van a dar un horario para poder darle seguridad a las personas. Les vamos a entrenar a las personas que limpian en la escuela cuándo deben limpiar y cuántas veces deben limpiar. También en la oficina que tienen que limpiar los escritorios, ellos también van a saber cuántas veces deben limpiar y si debe ser en el horario que debe ser, ellos nos van a dar un horario.
Thank you, Maria. The next question will go to Amy Beldotti. The question is, what is the difference between the distance teaching and learning academy and the hybrid model as far as curriculum? I'm not sure that I understand as a parent what the difference is.
So
La pregunta es, ¿qué es la diferencia entre, the question was, what's the difference between the hybrid model and the distance learning as far as curriculum goes?
Yes.
Ok, la pregunta es, ¿cuál es la diferencia entre el modelo híbrido y enseñanza a distancia que tiene que ver con el currículum? ¿Qué sería la diferencia entre los dos métodos?
So there is not a difference between the curriculum that will be presented in the Distance Teaching and Learning Academy or in the hybrid model. I just want to take a minute to talk about the Distance Teaching Academy for a moment. That is an option that we have provided to parents. It's a temporary option actually required by the state, and we are happy to offer that option to parents who do not feel comfortable or have another reason for not wanting their children to return to school at this time. So we are offering our Distance Teaching and Learning Academy. And that is on the Return to Learn form that I urge you to fill out and return to us so that we can meet the requests of all of our families. In the Distance Teaching and Learning Academy, students will be placed with Stanford Public Schools teachers for most of their courses to teach them just as they would be in school. There's no difference in curriculum. They will continue to move through the prioritized standards just as if they were attending in the hybrid. I'll let Maria translate that, and then I'll just expand on that a little bit.
No hay ninguna diferencia en el currículum entre los dos modelos. Esa opción de el modelo híbrido y enseñanza a distancia, la razón que les estamos dando es para que tengan opciones para los padres que no se sienten seguros de mandar a los hijos a la escuela.
So in the hybrid model, as I said before, students will be have an in-school learning day and an at-home learning day. In the Distance Teaching and Learning Academy, students will be home each day and they will receive approximately our guidelines from the state, and this is what we are expecting in our academy, would be that students would participate in 50% live instruction and 50% asynchronous, which is instruction that would again take place offline with students completing assignments. So that really the math works out to the same as students participating in school during the hybrid and out of school during the hybrid or in the Distance Teaching and Learning Academy. Both sets of students will receive 50% live instruction. One would just be online and one would be in a classroom. And so the expectation is that teachers in both settings would be moving through the curriculum at the same pace, and students would be, those teachers would be continuing to collaborate together. So English teachers across the city collaborate on department days, and we'll be giving them time before school starts to collaborate. And so they will be working to ensure that there are certain times of the year where different benchmarks are met, and we're on pace to complete the curriculum in the school year. So there's not, and I know that has been a worry that many parents have emailed me about, there's not one model where students are going to get through more curriculum or another any more than in a typical year with a little bit of teacher difference that may happen.
Los dos modelos no cambian lo que van a recibir cada estudiante. La diferencia es que en el modelo híbrido, se reduce la cantidad de estudiantes que van a estar en el aula. Este modelo reduce la cantidad de personas, pero no cambia en lo que van a aprender durante el día. En el distanciamiento, igual van a tener. En el modelo híbrido van a poder estar en la escuela un día y estar en la computadora el siguiente día. En el modelo que es a distanciamiento, ellos van a poder estar en la casa todos los días, pero van a tener días que se conectan y que puedan tener algo similar como el modelo híbrido. En realidad no cambia lo que va el currículum, lo único que cambia es la manera de aprendizaje, nada más.
Thanks, Maria. Next question will go to Dr. Fernandez. The question is, how will students with special needs have their individualized education plans or IEPs implemented in distance teaching and learning in the hybrid model?
La pregunta es, para los niños que tienen educación especial, ¿cómo van a poder implementar en el modelo de distanciamiento?
So this will obviously be taken on a case-by-case basis depending on the student's specific IEP. But as Ms. Baldati stated, when students are in school, we will certainly deliver their special education and related services to them in school. That's the best way to deliver specialized instruction and our related services, which are speech and language therapy, our OT, our PT, if your child qualifies for those services, and our counseling. When students are at home, we'll also be providing live instruction, either through teletherapy options, which we've done for speech therapy and some of our other related services, and direct instruction from our speech pathologists. We're adding, the state just recently released a lot of guidance for special education, so we're working on adding that guidance to our plan. I plan to send something out to all of our special education families by Friday to give you more detail on exactly what that information looks like. But we are planning a comprehensive distance learning academy for our students with disabilities as well.
Cada caso, todo va a depender, va a ser caso por caso. Cuando están en la escuela van a recibir todos los de educación especial que necesitan recibir. Si no van a la escuela, también van a poder tener unas sesiones en vivo con cada educación especial que ellos necesiten.
Thanks, Maria. The next question I have is around masks. What protocols, procedures, consequences will be in place for children who refuse to wear their mask both in and out of the classroom? Or what about students who continually take their mask off in the hallway, which may be likely during the busiest times when kids are closest together or at other locations in the school?
La pregunta es sobre las máscaras. Quieren saber qué va a pasar para los niños que no quieren ponerse la máscara o que se sacan la máscara durante el tiempo que están en el hall, en el pasillo. Quieren saber cuál sería lo que harían si un niño no se quiere poner la máscara o no está siguiendo las reglas de las máscaras.
So I guess I'll jump in and answer this. So we're working with the board right now to pass a mask policy, but with any rule that we create for students, the first thing we want to do is help them to understand why it's important for them to wear masks. So I believe we are creating a webinar that is going to help parents start to talk to their students, not just their kindergartners, but also their 12th graders, about how important it is to wear a mask and how it keeps us all safe. Now, we don't want to be punitive about mask wearing and students' refusal to wear the mask, so we will be working with students to help them understand why it's important and how it keeps us all safe. But if a student refuses and we, with giving them the proper guidance of, we really would like you to put on your mask, there's refusal, then just like with any discipline, there will be an administrator that steps in and takes the student and takes them to a place where we all can be safe with the student having off their mask, have some conversations with him or her, and if they still decide that they want to not comply with our request to put back on their mask, their parents will be called and there will be consequences, because masks are important to keep us all safe. We don't want to be punitive, but we also want to keep us all safe.
Lo primero que queremos que los estudiantes sepan qué tan importante es ponerse la máscara, cómo nos puede ayudar a mantenernos todos con seguridad poniéndonos las máscaras. Como todo lo que hacemos en la escuela, sería si no se ponen la máscara, tenemos que tener disciplina y tener una consecuencia porque no se pusieron una máscara. Entonces, si la persona, el estudiante decide no seguir las reglas, llamaríamos a administración y hablar con ellos, tratar de que ellos entiendan por qué tienen que ponerse la máscara, qué tan importante es, y si ellos no quieren ponerse la máscara, sería una llamada a los padres para que tengamos una conversación sobre qué tan importante es ponerse la máscara durante el tiempo que están en la escuela.
Thanks, Maria. I think at this time, we're going to take some questions from the question box. So I'll turn it over to Dr. Fernandez.
Thanks, Olympia. We're getting a ton of questions in the question feature. I've seen some patterns that I wanted to share. One of the questions, I'm going to go back to Ms. Beldotti. There's a lot of questions about when parents choose an option, Ms. Beldotti, whether it's the Distance Learning Academy or the hybrid model. What's the flexibility of changing their mind and what's the process for that? There are quite a few questions around that.
Hay muchas preguntas en este momento que preguntan frecuentemente qué sería la flexibilidad si uno decide entre un modelo o otro modelo.
So good question, and we certainly want to work with families. I'm making this decision for my children as well, so I know it is a hard decision to make, and we understand that some families may end up changing their mind. And so we, of course, want to work with families who do change their mind, and we will accept families' requests to change from one model to the other. It's not a one way. If you're in the hybrid model and wish to switch to the Distance Teaching and Learning Academy, you can. And if you're in Distance Teaching and Learning, you can switch to the hybrid model. So either is fine. We are setting up a process to let us know that you wish to do that. We are asking for a week after the school year starts to make that switch. And that involves, because of transferring information and letting the teacher know that your child will be arriving in the class, transportation, lots of reasons. We do need some time to make that transfer, but we are happy to do that. We do ask you, though, to consider these changes carefully. It is, in essence, changing your child from one school to another. It will involve a change in teachers. And so, we want parents to consider, the decision to move their child carefully. We feel that at the best times, it would be at the end of quarters or semesters in the case of secondary. So just keep that in mind as well. As the quarter comes to an end, we will be reminding parents that this would be a good time to make a change if you wanted to. And so that would be our recommendation, but we will allow parents to make a change, whenever they feel that they need to do that for their child. So that is a very good question, and we certainly want to work with families to make the best decision for their children.
Fue una muy buena pregunta. Yo sé que es una decisión muy difícil para todos los padres. Queremos ayudar a todos nuestros padres a que ellos se sientan seguros con lo que deciden. No es mandatorio que si deciden por un modelo, que se tienen que quedar en ese modelo. Sí se puede hacer un cambio. Piden que si van a hacer el cambio después de ya haber decidido un modelo, necesitan una semana para poder hacer ese cambio. Necesitamos ese tiempo porque tenemos que avisar a la secretaria para poder hacer el cambio, avisar al profesor que viene un estudiante, o de la otra manera sería que necesitan sacarle a un estudiante de la escuela porque se va al distanciamiento social. Idealmente sería lo mejor si esperan que cada sesión termine, cada quarter se dice aquí, pero si necesitan hacer ese cambio antes de que termine cada sesión, no hay problema. Lo único que pedimos es una semana que nos den para poder hacer ese cambio.
Olympia, I also saw many questions regarding mask wearing, so I'm glad that you asked that question. This is another question. I think this will probably be for you, Dr. Lucero. A number of parents have asked about the process or protocol. What is it if a staff member or student tests positive for COVID? And the parent, one particular parent asked, will the school automatically go into shutdown?
Yeah, so that's one of the reasons why we really want to make sure that we have a process in place at the beginning so that we can share that process with staff, students, and families. So going forward, you will actually get a written document that helps you understand step by step what it looks like if a family, if a person tests positive in your child's classroom. So it will look something like this. Let's say the student is still at home and they have, over the weekend, they found out that they tested positive. What we're asking them to do is contact the school immediately and let the principal know or the nurse know. And the nurse will tell the principal and the principal will tell the nurse. And then the nurse would then walk the family through what we're calling a risk assessment, where they ask several questions about where the student has been. That's why it's really important that the student is in the classes that they are assigned to every day, so we'll know who they came in contact with. Once the contact tracing is done, we would be able to contact the families of the students that we feel that were at risk without giving information about the particular student who tested positive, because there are HIPAA laws that we will need to make sure that we're not breaking. But you will get, there will be lots of training. We actually are having our health professionals create a video for us so that you know step by step what will happen. If indeed we do find that there is a class that there was a student who tests positive, we will ask that class to self-quarantine probably, and we say probably because we do a risk assessment, and depending on how much contact they've had with one another, we will ask the entire class to self-quarantine for 14 days. They will go home. If their teacher is not sick, we would still continue distance learning instruction for that class during that time that they are out of school. If it's the teacher who tests positive, we actually will assign a substitute teacher to that classroom and they would continue instruction. So instruction would continue for the rest of the students who may have just been quarantined because they had been in contact with someone who tested positive. But we will do lots of training for our staff, students, and our families so that everyone has a clear understanding that as soon as someone tests positive, we don't just shut down the entire building.
Ok, la señora Lucero dice que puede ser que si hay alguien, un estudiante que va a la casa durante el fin de semana, llega a tener el COVID positivo, lo primero que tienen que hacer es comunicarse con la escuela y la enfermera. Así ellos pueden comunicarse con todos los estudiantes que tuvieron contacto con él. Si por alguna razón la profesora tuvo el COVID o está positivo, van a poder tener un sustituto para poder continuar la clase.
Ms. Delflora, that's all I have on my, that's not all I have, but I'll turn it over back to you.
Okay, just let me know when you're ready for more. So I'd like to just add on to the topic we're on to right now, and this actually came up on our staff webinar too. The question is, what policies in place for both faculty and students, families that have recently traveled to states with high COVID numbers? Will faculty be asked not to travel to these places before school? And if they do, will they be asked to quarantine? What about students and families? And will these policies remain in place once school begins? So this is around the question of the traveling to the high COVID-19 state. So Maria.
La pregunta es, ¿qué pasa si un estudiante estuvo en un estado donde los casos son altos? ¿Va a haber algún protocolo para poder entrar a la escuela de nuevo? ¿O cómo van a hacer para saber si en este caso el estudiante podría tener el virus?
Would you like me to take that question? There is,
Yes.
so there is a travel advisory. We have sent information to all of our teachers so that they're aware that there is a travel advisory, and actually families will get this same information in my communication this week. It is really important for people to know that this is a requirement and a mandate of the state. So if you leave the state and you are in another state that is one on the list for more than 24 hours, you must self-quarantine when you return to the state. There are other rules in terms of if you get tested and you test negative, but for the most part, if you go to another state that is on the list and you come back to Connecticut, you are required to self-quarantine for 14 days. And we will require you to do that.
Ok, la escuela va a requerir que si es que usted fue al estado donde hubo muchos casos del virus, va a tener que quedarse 15 días en cuarentena, y eso sí requiere la escuela, antes de que el estudiante regrese a la escuela.
Okay, next question will probably be for Amy Beldotti. I have children in elementary school, middle school, and high school. Will they be assigned to the same group in the hybrid model?
Yo tengo 3 hijos. Tengo un hijo en la escuela elementaria, secundaria y el high school. Es a distanciamiento social lo que estoy escogiendo. ¿Le van a mandar a todos al mismo tiempo?
So the easy answer is yes. We are committed to doing that. I've said that publicly many times. Our principals at our schools are committed to that work. We are in the process right now of tagging all of our siblings on our return to learn form, and we will accommodate that for families. The only caveat I would make is that if for a particular reason a family does not want their children scheduled for the same day for a childcare reason or another reason, that you should communicate that with your building principal so that we can accommodate that need for siblings. We are really committed to household siblings staying on the same schedule.
Lo que queremos es que todos los estudiantes estén, lo más fácil que estén en el mismo horario, pero si por alguna razón es algo que no funciona, se pueden comunicar con la escuela para tratar de ver cómo se les puede ayudar. Si es diferente horario o si el horario funciona, entonces sería de esa manera.
Thank you, Maria. Next question will go to Dr. Fernandez. What are the specifications for the technology device that is needed? How do I know what to purchase for my child if I want to buy a personal device? Or how can I determine if what I already have will work?
La pregunta es, quiero saber si hay especificaciones de lo que necesito comprar para que mi hijo tenga lo que necesita para poder estar en la escuela. ¿Qué serían lo que van a dar algo específico que yo tengo que comprar?
I missed the first part of the question, Ms. Del Flora, but in terms of the specs, we sent the recommended specifications for the devices to your school principal to share with you. We'll also be including it in our Q&A for technology, which is coming out soon. So your principal does have access to that. And I missed the first part of that question, Ms. Del Flora.
It was basically just what you said, the specifications, and then just like how would they know if they wanted to purchase one? So I think your answer addresses it. It's going to be listed in the frequently asked questions for technology.
I'll just add that in terms of devices, if you have a preschool child We're providing tablets for them, so some type of touchscreen tablet if you had a preschooler. For students in K through 8, we're providing Chromebooks, so it would be a Chromebook device. I think it's 4 megabytes of RAM, 11-inch screen. I can't remember the megabytes, but anyways, we can get you that information. And then for high school students, we're providing a laptop computer. It's a Dell laptop. I don't have those specific specs on me, but again, we did send that information to your school principals who have that information.
La información de lo que necesitan para la escuela les dieron a cada uno de los principales de cada escuela. Pueden comunicarse con cada principal y ellos tienen especificaciones de lo que necesitan. Para kindergarten, preschool, les van a proporcionar una tableta. Para kindergarten a octavo les van a dar un Chromebook, que hay especificaciones, pero en ese momento él no sabe exactamente cuál es. Para el high school les van a dar un laptop Dell.
Thank you, Maria. Next question is around scheduling. It says, will all electives be offered at middle school and high school? And if not, when will we know what classes our children are scheduled for? And if we have any issues with scheduling, who should we contact for help?
La pregunta es sobre el horario. ¿Van a dar electivos a todos los estudiantes? Si por alguna razón hay alguna clase que tenemos conflicto, ¿con quién nos debemos comunicar para poder hacer cambios?
So not every course will be able to be taught this year, and that may include some in our hybrid model and some in our distance teaching and learning model because of social distancing and requirements about shared materials. And so we are working with the health department to figure out those courses right now. Our scheduling will be completed. We're completing our rollover today. And so high school schedules and middle school schedules will be available shortly after some of the conflicts are worked out after that rollover. There are always a few scheduling things that have to be worked out. So once your schedule is available, Power School, you would contact your child's school counselor in same procedure as in past years if there is a scheduling issue. For electives that are under enrolled in our distance teaching and learning academy, we do have a online platform called Edgenuity that we will be using to provide some of the electives that students are interested in that we may just not have enough students interested in our distance teaching and learning academy. So we will be utilizing that source as well to provide additional course offerings to students.
Este año no todas las clases van a ofrecer en el horario. Si necesitan comunicarse porque algunas clases quieren hacer un cambio, tienen que comunicarse con cada counselor de cada escuela. Si es en el high school o middle school. Si es en elementaria, pueden comunicarse con la secretaria y pueden hacer cambios, dependiendo si es el modelo híbrido o el modelo a distancia.
Thanks, Maria. The next question is actually two parts. One part will probably go to me, but maybe the first question is what's happening with extracurricular activities and after-school activities, and then the other question that's part of that is what is happening with sports. So Dr. Lucero or Amy, do you want to take extracurricular and then I'll do sports?
So with extracurricular activity, sorry.
Oh yeah, Maria, I'm sorry. Question is what is happening with extracurricular after-school activities and sports?
Ok, la pregunta es, ¿qué va a pasar con actividades adicionales y los deportes que va a pasar, que la escuela antes daba?
So one of the things that is that we're considering as to whether or not we offer extracurricular activities is the fact that we want our custodians to be able to clean our buildings every evening without interruption. And so we will be really limiting the amount of extracurriculars that we will offer in our school buildings. We will have people submit applications if they would like to teach a extracurricular activity, and then that will be assessed if it is outside of our school, meaning it's an outdoor activity, we may approve it. And if it is something that may be able to be done virtually, we could also approve it. But anything that really requires for the students and staff to remain in the building, we will probably, until January, not approve any of those extracurricular activities. And I'll turn it over to Olympia about sports.
Ok, las actividades adicionales en este momento vamos a minimizar porque necesitamos el tiempo después de la escuela para poder hacer la limpieza que necesita la escuela. Lo otro, si por alguna razón cuando deciden tener alguna actividad adicional, lo que van a hacer es tratar de ver si se puede hacer virtual. Si se puede hacer virtual, es una forma que podemos dar una actividad adicional.
Thanks, Maria. And as far as sports goes, we work really closely and follow the guidance of the CIAC, which is the Connecticut Association that governs athletics in the state of Connecticut, as well as the Department of Health for the state of Connecticut, as well as our local health department. And we started to do some summer conditioning following those protocols and developing some protocols here in Stanford Public Schools to make sure that we were abiding by that. And we will continue to just monitor that closely. We have not made an official decision yet on fall sports because we are still awaiting a decision at the state level.
Acerca de los deportes, hay una organización que es CISC. También trabajamos con el Departamento de Salud y tenemos que esperar que ellos nos den aprueben para poder tener algún deporte.
Thanks, Maria. I think this one will be a quick answer, but we talked a little bit about it, but the question is, will all faculty be tested for COVID-19 prior to the start of the school?
So
la pregunta es, that's okay. La pregunta es, todas las personas, we're talking about everybody from the school, correct?
That's the staff. That's the question.
Okay.
The staff.
La pregunta es, ¿todas las personas que trabajan en la escuela van a ser requeridos que tengan un examen de COVID?
So we are currently working with Mayor Martin to see if we will be able to have all of our teachers who would like to be tested before they return to school. It's a bit more complicated than we originally thought. And so we should have an answer for this in the next couple of days, but I have a meeting to discuss this further with the mayor and his representatives in the next few days. And as soon as I know for certain, we will get that information out to our staff.
Estamos trabajando con Mayor Martin para ver si, dependiendo de cada profesora, si ellos están de acuerdo en tomar ese examen. Y también estamos trabajando con el alcalde para tener más información. En este momento no tenemos una información, pero en unos días vamos a tener.
Thank you, Maria. The next question is around childcare. I'm not really sure that we can answer it, but we could maybe offer some guidance. But this is one that has come up with several parents, just of a concern around if their children have to go to different places on the at-home days, is that going to impact cohorting, and should they communicate with the schools where their child is going to be for childcare? Like, before COVID, you know, you might say your kid is going to this child care center after school. So parents are asking what they should be communicating with schools around child care. I believe you already addressed if they need assistance, they can certainly contact our office, the Family and Community Engagement Office, and we can do our best to get them connected to resources. So with that being said, the question is, do we have any advice or guidance for parents around childcare on the at-home days, and what should they be communicating to schools about, or if anything, around where their child is going for childcare on the at-home days? So Maria?
So the question is, do they have to inform the school where they're going to be when they're not in school?
Yes.
Ok, la pregunta es, ¿necesitamos comunicar a la escuela cuando ellos no están en la escuela dónde van a estar los niños?
So we would like to know where your children are going on the days that they are not in school for a couple reasons. And if we needed this information for contact tracing, which is really one of the reasons why we are doing cohorting, it is so that we can contact trace if someone does test positive, and we're able to tell people who they came in contact with. So that would be important for us to know, but we would ask you that question as we did the risk assessment when the nurse called your family. However, I also think it's important for us to know that information, because if by chance a student comes to school on a day, they're assigned on a blue day and they come on a green day, it helps us to be able to contact the family and let them know that we will have buses that can return the child to, let's say, the Boys and Girls Club if they came to school on the wrong day. So there's a couple of reasons why it would be helpful for us to know what school, where you're going on the days you're not coming to school.
Hay muchas razones que es bueno saber la comunicación, que nos comuniquen dónde van a estar los estudiantes cuando no están en la escuela. Una de las razones es porque podemos saber si llegan a alguien a tener el virus, podemos comunicar con las personas donde estuvieron. La otra razón es si llegan a venir a la escuela en un día que no tuvieron que estar ahí y sabemos dónde ellos se quedan los días que no están en la escuela, podríamos con un bus llevarles al sitio donde pertenecen. Entonces sería una comunicación que nos ayudaría en diferentes formas.
Thanks, Maria. We're getting close to the end of the webinar, so I'm going to turn it back over to Dr. Fernandez to pull some more questions out of the question box.
En ese momento estamos llegando casi al final y el doctor Fernández va a ver si hay más preguntas.
We've gotten a couple of questions about certain parts of the school day to students. Some of them might say this is the most important part, but what's going on with recess and lunch?
La pregunta es sobre el recreo y la hora de comer.
So how about I handle recess if Olympia, if you'll take lunch for us? So
Yep.
The way recess is going to work is we're actually just met with the health department today to say what does recess need to look like. And so we have a meeting scheduled on Thursday with our principals so that I can share that information with them. But basically, I think that you would understand that we are going to need to social distance as we go out to recess, which means we may have to limit the amount of students who are outside at one particular time. We also want to make sure that we give students the opportunity, especially if it's not any bad weather out, that we are getting them outside even for some of their class time. So there will be opportunities for classes in their cohort or at the high school level to go outside and just to get them out of the building a little.
Durante el recreo, en ese momento, estamos hablando con el Departamento de Salud y que, nos están diciendo qué debemos hacer durante el recreo. Lo primero es muy necesario mantener la distancia. También no va a ser el único momento que salgan afuera. Cuando tengan un recreo, van a poder salir a otras oportunidades durante el día.
And I will take the lunch question. Yes, lunch is a very important part of the school day. We have 3 different models that we can use to serve meals during this time. The first one, it would be a classroom delivery model. This is mainly what we'll be doing in the elementary schools, which the meals will be delivered to the classroom. The students will consume the lunch in the classroom. The second is cart distribution for meals, and this would be having prepackaged meals on a cart throughout the building where students can pick up their meal and then they would take it to a space in the building or even possibly outside to eat. And then the third is our grab and go, which is similar to what we're doing over the summer, where students would be able to pick up meals and take them home. So each school is going to be a little bit different based on the layout and the staff and the number of meals that they'll be serving, but it will be a combination of one of those 3, and all the meals will be prepackaged.
Yo sé que el lunch es muy importante para cada estudiante. Lo que vamos a ofrecer van a ser 3 modelos durante el lunch. Lo primero es que la escuela va a hacer una entrega a cada clase, que les van a traer el lunch a cada clase. El segundo modelo sería en un carrito, van a poder tener el lunch y coger de ahí. O la tercera opción es a lo que dicen grab and go, puedes coger y llevarte, y básicamente eso es como ofrecieron durante el verano, que les van a dar el lunch para llevar a la casa. Eso depende de cada escuela, cada escuela va a tener el sistema.
And we also want to encourage all of our families to complete their school lunch applications. Those are available on our website now. So if you would go ahead and put that as one of your beginning of the year forms, you'll be hearing more information from your schools, but it will help us in planning for lunches. So please be sure to complete your school lunch application for the upcoming school year.
Y también algo que les estamos pidiendo en ese momento es que si todavía no han aplicado para el lunch, la aplicación para el lunch, por favor pueden ir al website de la escuela y ahí ya está listo para que ustedes puedan aplicar.
I'm still seeing a number of questions about the blue-green schedule, Ms. Beldati, and parents are asking about what's the criteria used for determining who goes into what color, and then when will parents find this out is a big question.
Sure. So let Maria translate that.
Otra pregunta que está viendo frecuentemente es que quieren saber cómo van a determinar el horario entre el día azul y el día verde, qué criterio toman para poder decidir eso y cómo van a saber qué día les toca a cada estudiante.
So as I mentioned previously, the rollover of our data from last year's school year to this year's school year is occurring today. And so we will be again looking at the high school. The high school will dictate the scheduling for siblings and others because it is the most complicated. It's the most number of students as well as the most complicated schedule with the course selection that our high school students take. So once the high school is set and they are using an alphabetic distribution, a split of A through L approximately for the blue group and M through Z approximately for the green group. Once the high school has theirs all set, that will be communicated out not only to parents but also down to our middle and elementary schools, and they'll be able to then complete their schedules and their classroom assignments at the middle and elementary school level once we know for sure which cohort all of our high school students will be assigned to.
Como Mrs. Beldari mencionó anteriormente, ella dice que en ese momento están cambiando todos los estudiantes de un año al otro año. Ya cuando eso esté listo, ellos van a poder dar a cada estudiante qué color de día van a tener. La letra A a L va a tener el color azul y la letra M a Z va a ser el color verde. Los primeros que les dan los días y el color van a ser los del high school, porque ellos determinan mucho de cómo pueden, se conectan con los otros, que sería elementaria y secundaria.
Thanks, Maria. And we are getting to a close for our first webinar that we're doing tonight. And so, Dr. Lucero, I don't know if you have any closing comments, and then we'll go ahead and close out.
En este momento ya llegamos al final del seminario. La doctora Lucero va a decir unas palabras antes de terminar.
Well, I just want to first thank Maria for her wonderful translation, and I'm sorry for always interrupting you. I apologize for that. I'll get better next session. And I want to thank our panel who's been really working hard on this plan. I know that this is not an ideal situation we're in. I think if all of us had our way, we would COVID would be gone and we would return to school 100% and see our friends and our teachers, and that would be wonderful for all of us, but that's not the situation we're in. And so we are trying to make the best of this in Stanford. And I think that it really is going to be a place that we're able to walk back in and provide a quality education for our students, whether they join us in our hybrid model or in our distance teaching and learning academy. I do want to encourage you to submit your choice by the end of this week. And the reason why that's important is that the more people that we have this information from, the better off we will be in terms of assigning people to their different groups. So we do not have a due date for this. We don't want to put that pressure on families, but we are going to expect that we're going to start acting on the data and information that we have on Friday. So thank you so much for joining us here. We are willing to answer more questions as they come in. And so if you would like to join us for the elementary session, it will start in about 30 minutes. But if you have other questions that you just need some answers to, don't hesitate to reach out. I think Olympia has up our, do you have up the the email address? There is the email address. You can send any question to that email and we will get back to you. Remember, we have 17,181 students joining us this year, so we will try to get back to you as soon as possible when we get a question. But thank you so much for joining us and have a wonderful evening.
La señora Lucero primero agradece a todos los panelistas que estuvieron aquí en ese momento. Me agradece a mí también por traducir. Ella también dice que sabe que en esa situación no es ideal para todos, pero en ese momento están tratando de hacerlo mejor. Quiere pedirles también que escojan el horario que va, el modelo que van a querer para cada uno de sus hijos. Si necesitan o tienen otras preguntas, pueden mandarnos al email que está en la computadora. También tienen la opción de entrar al siguiente webinar, que es elementaria, pero también podrían hacer alguna pregunta que tuvieron en este momento. Y si tienen alguna otra pregunta, se pueden comunicar con cada escuela.
Thanks, Maria. Everyone have a wonderful evening. Good night.
Good night.